He is the host of the weekly trivia podcast, You Should Know Better. You know him, now we know his name is Keith from the Progressive Becoming Your Parents commercials. He's Dan on Shrinking on Apple TV+, Nurse Larry on ABC's Blackish, and a well-known Jeopardy champion. Thanks for joining us, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm very, very good. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad you got some help and you could track me down.
He was desperate to track you down. It was very weird. I apologize for him.
I was stalking you. I love the spots. I love the wardrobe. I love the props, the hair. Whoever got it just right. From the jacket being the windbreaker's a little too big, the billfold is stuffed with all sorts of bits of paper. Somebody really got it right.
Yeah, everybody that works on those spots is just extraordinary. And I think we all realize that this is something that's out of the ordinary, and you don't normally get campaigns like this in advertising anymore. So to be a part of it, I think everyone knows just how special it is, and we want to just keep exploring it and keep it going. So yeah, the props department coming up with that wallet, that when I saw it, I was like, that's everybody's dad's or uncle's wallet. And the credit card, the fake credit cards and the fake coupons that they had in the wallet are like legit. They made me laugh so hard. So it's from the top down. It's from, the client is cool. The writers are incredible. And then the director of the spots, Marty Granger, him and his producing partner, Heidi, have worked together for over 20 years. And they're just a well-oiled machine, and they work with their crew really well. So then you guys mentioned people like Chris Witowski and Bill Glass. You throw the actors in there, and it's this magical thing that everyone just does their job and is happy to be there. And to see the world kind of respond to these ads over the last handful of years is just something I've never seen before. So just to be a part of it is pretty cool.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you. As someone in this business, what's it like to see? Because look, there are multiple TV shows inside of Progressive commercials. Like there's two different tiers of a short form sitcom going on with Progressive. What is that like?
Yeah. I mean, the insurance companies just in general, they kind of prove the point that they have the money to produce really cool, excellent advertising that works. But Progressive, with the Flow commercials, I mean, she's been at it for, I think, 15 plus years. And like you guys mentioned, she was an actress that was just, rank and file and doing, guest stars and co-stars here, and was on some movies and TV shows and performs at the Groundlings, I think, still weekly, because that's what she's incredible at. But yeah, she auditions for that one job, and it turns into 15 years where she's directed, I think, some spots, and she's done full makeup and played multiple characters and stuff like that. So yeah, I've luckily done commercials for most of the last 15 plus years, which is incredible. I never thought that moving out here from Chicago. But to find a campaign where they call me back, even if it's once a year, once every couple of years, and just to see everybody and everyone welcomes everyone back, and just again, the response from the public. Advertising, usually people aren't really talking about commercial these days, maybe at the Oscars or the Super Bowl or something, but that's about it. But when you go on YouTube, I knew this was different. After the first one I did, I went on YouTube and I looked at the comment section, which is usually the ninth circle of hell. And usually like the third comment down is, something racist or, political or whatever. And 90+% of the comments were positive. And I was like, oh my Lord, that never happened. So I knew something was up, and it's continued to be so. When a new one springs up, people kind of go nuts.
Some of these hit a little close to home for me, like when in the grocery store, when Keith decides he wants to go to the manager to compliment the guy who's doing the slicing at the deli, and both of my kids went, "You do that! Like, that's you! Like, you're the old guy now." Now, I'm not turning into, it's not like I'm turning into my parents, but both of my kids were they got such a kick out of that. They're like, "You're the guy that absolutely would compliment somebody for being really good at slicing at the deli and seek out the manager." Like, fine, guilty, you got me.
I think that's part of the magic too, is some people are happy to admit they're turning into their folks or their grandparents or just getting older, or the kids are digging it because they see you doing that and stuff. And I did get a lot of comments where they're like, "What's wrong with complimenting the guy in produce, Brian? What's wrong with that?" But
Nothing.
most people get the joke. Yeah, it's like all these things are these little peccadillos that are funny and stuff, but we all do it. And I think that's what's genius about the campaign too. And I'm sure other advertising agencies or some are like kicking themselves over and over again, where it's like, where could people turn into their parents? Anywhere, everywhere. They could do a million of these spots forever. We hope.
Do you guys get to bring stuff to the creators and say, you know what you might want to do with this, or you've had a moment that you've said, this is me turning into my parents?
For sure, they let us play all the time, and that's what's kind of great is just the combination of when we get the set of scripts every time we go in for callback auditions or we get to set. It's a packet, and usually you don't get like a packet of scripts, but they usually have. I usually read the first bit and I fall down laughing. So the writers are just consistently tremendous. So what's on the page is what makes it to the commercials a lot of the times. But the between the writers and the director, they're constantly throwing us stuff during the shoot and in between takes. And then as actors, they've worked with a lot of us, like Chris Witowski, and there's a great actress named Abra from New York, and my friend Valentina, and some other really great improvisational actors that they let us play. Once they get the stuff that's on the paper and they get a bunch of alternates, they let us screw around. And for example, when Bill Glass pulls a weird round object out of a garage freezer and says, "I'll give you $100 if you tell me what this is," and I just improvise Scotch egg, thinking no one knows what a Scotch egg is. And when that made the commercial, I like fell off my couch. I was like, I didn't know what a Scotch egg was until I was like 35 years old. But I think it tickled them and they put it up there and it got a huge response. So yeah, it's a combination of everybody working together. And what we realized too is, I mean, we shoot all day for 22 seconds. There's hours of footage of really funny stuff that's on the cutting room floor. And people have asked, why don't you put that stuff up or behind the scenes or bloopers or whatever? And I think what they do is I think they just harvest some of the great stuff and they'll just use it in a commercial down the road. So they're just constantly harvesting fun things that pop up while we shoot.
So how old is that Bears hat?
This one's relatively new. I have some really gross old ones from like the 90s and 2000s, but this one's, I think, like less than a year old. I saw it because it looked kind of old school, just the Chicago, just Bears. I was like, I want something classic. So I went with this one. But yeah, I've been a Bears fan since I think one of my first words were Walter Payton. So
isn't he right? Isn't that a picture of Walter Payton right behind you?
Sweetness right here. I have a bobblehead behind me. He's the one true idol. It's like I loved, the Big Hurt and I loved MJ, but Sweetness will never be eclipsed in my fandom. I think he's, the greatest of all time. So
that's fun to have you say, especially considering earlier in the show, his son, Jared Payton, he's a weekly contributor to our show. So we were actually having conversations about Walter Payton today. So to have two conversations about Walter Payton means that we've done our job right.
You can never have enough sweetness.
So tell us about your Jeopardy experience, how that came to be, and what has it always been an ambition for you, and then to win and be there for a while had to be really fulfilling.
Yeah, another extraordinary. I pinch myself a lot. I think just growing up in the Chicagoland area in Chesterton, Indiana. Shout out to all my friends in Chesterton, Indiana. In the region rats. Like you guys, you'd get Jeopardy on at 3:30 in the afternoon. So I'd come home from school and grab a snack, and that would be on the TV before, Linda Yu or Alan Kraszewski would come on for the 4 o'clock. And I would watch Jeopardy, and when I first started watching in the mid 80s, I'd get, maybe one question right. And something that kind of blew my mind that I think attracted me is more times than not, I would be watching the game and something I had learned in school like that week or that day would be a clue and I'd get it right. I was like, holy smokes, I just learned that today. And then I watched it. I got that little, I think my brother Russell got the Jeopardy at home calculator so you could play at home and like put in the amounts and stuff and kind of play as a contestant from home. But yeah, I started trying to get on the show after I graduated college from Indiana University, and I moved back to Chicago, and I was working at Ed DeBevick's, which seems like every actor does for a stint. And while I was a waiter there, they were having tryouts back in the day. They do it, like a downtown Hyatt or Hilton or something like that in a big banquet hall. And first time I went was in person, and then I went on to try out online for most of the last, I think it took me 21 years. So I started in my early 20s and then finally got the call a couple years ago to go to the second round of tests. Did that thinking maybe I'll have to do that for another 20 years, but got the call 10 months after I had taken the second battery of tests. And unfortunately, I missed Alex by 3 months, who was my hero. But I got Anderson Cooper as my guest host, and he couldn't have been a cooler gent. And then, yeah, just to be on the show was a win. I was like, you're here, you already won, no matter what happens. And then to win a game, I kind of floated off stage and didn't know what else happened for the next like 6 hours, but I ended up winning 3 games, and I got to play four games in one day because they shoot a whole week's worth in one day. So I played 4 games of Jeopardy in a day and walked back to my car just with my head completely blown. I can't believe that just happened. It was a day I will never ever forget.
That's so cool. My wife's cousin was on Jeopardy. And he said what people don't realize, the secret sauce is the timing of the buzzer, and that some people just have it and some don't. Did you realize that that rhythm you just got?
That's an excellent question, because it leads me to this. When you go, they give you like a little orientation, and then everyone gets a chance. Everyone that's there that's going to shoot for that day gets a chance to do a rehearsal. And you get to go to the stage and you get behind a podium and you grab a buzzer, and they put up pretty easy questions just so they want to get everyone familiar with ringing in. So you can kind of find that rhythm and see how it is. And there's a lighting cue on the outside of the board. And they told us that. They're like, there's a lighting cue. As soon as the question's over, the lights come up. And that's another reason to buzz in. And I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, wait. Some people it works, the lighting cue, and other people it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And for me, the lighting cue did not work at all. So during the rehearsal, we got about 15 questions to ring in, and I was 0 for 15. I did not buzz in right once. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to be that guy or girl that you see, freakishly pushing the button over and over and looking off to the producers being like, my buzzer's broken. I went back to holding, which was the Wheel of Fortune area, and just kind of meditated for a couple minutes. It was like, dude, you're here. It's go time. That was just rehearsal. And as an actor, there was some old adage of like, terrible rehearsal, good show. And I just kept thinking that. And then the very first game, the first question was called by the champ, and I rang in, and my podium lit up, and Anderson Cooper called on me, and I got it right. And then I got a couple more right and a daily double right. And after that, I kind of chilled out. But after a horrible rehearsal, I got the rhythm of the buzzer, because you are going up against 2 other really fast, smart people always. If you've made it that far, you're going up against someone that knows a bajillion things and is fast on the buzzer. So you got to hopefully get in more times than not.
As you're working your way through like acting and gigging and everything else and working at Ed DeBevick's, is there anyone that you saw in Chicago that wasn't a star, that when you saw them perform, you were like, yep, that person is going places immediately?
Yeah, I mean, throughout my kind of career, because I was a late bloomer. I took my first acting class the middle of my college days down in Bloomington at Indiana University. And there were people there that were just so good, and I was enamored with them. And then Chicago, if you went to The Annoyance, and you saw, Susan Messing and what's his name, Mick Napier at The Annoyance, or at Second City, and you'd watch any of those shows on the ETC stage or in the Skybox or IO, Improv Olympic. I had so many friends that were just extraordinary that went on to become writers and actors. And then in LA, it was the same thing. I think I went to my first Groundling show, and I saw Edie Patterson, who's now on Righteous Gemstones. And she was on.
She's amazing on that show.
She is. She opened her mouth once at this Groundling show, and this is like circa 2005 or 6. And I fell out of my seat laughing, and everything she did that whole show, I was like, who is this? And, even from that time, it took her a while before Danny McBride finally saw what I saw 10 years earlier. But yeah, hopefully that's what you see, is like a little bit of a meritocracy where the people that are just outstanding and incredible are going to get their opportunities and their chances. So yeah, I've seen a lot of people that deserve every bit of praise and money and success because they're so good.
Well, here is to you being one of those who's moving to that phase of your career out there right now. And that's why when we saw somebody, I said, look, that dude's funny. We want to find him and we want to talk to him. And the fact that it turns out that you're a Chicago area sports fan is just icing on the cake.
Keep working so that you don't have to worry about the White Sox anymore, Mike.
I can't believe they did more due diligence on hiring a play-by-play guy than a GM. Unbelievable to root for that team. It's like, you could have me back and we can just talk about how terrible that franchise has been.
It's a date. That's a date. We'll do it.
Yep.
We'll do it and celebrate baseball season when the time comes. This is awesome. Thanks so much.
Yep. Oh, happy to be here. Thanks so much.
That is Mike C. Nelson.
How great was he?
Man.